Dragons in a Bag by Zetta Elliott. Illustrations by Geneva B. Chapter 4. Ma slams the window shut before snatching the mashed-up box off the counter. She tucks it under her arm and spins around to face me. "Thought I told you to read a book." I open my mouth to reply, but then realize Ma doesn't expect me to say a word. My cheeks tingle with shame as I stoop to pick up the dented bread box. I set it on the table and then shove my hands into my pockets to keep them from finding any more trouble. I open my mouth to tell Ma I'm usually a very obedient boy, but no words come out. I almost never break the rules at home, but things feel different here. I feel different here. I want to ask Ma a dozen questions, but the stern look on the strange old lady's face tells me I better keep my questions to myself for now. Ma prods me in the back with her cane, so I walk out of the kitchen ahead of her and into the dark hallway. In the dining room, I see the old-fashioned phone in the center of the round table and notice there's no cord attaching it to the wall. "Did you make your phone call?" I ask. Ma just dumps the damaged box on the table and swats me on the butt with her cane. "Go find a book, boy," she says with a nod in the direction of the living room. This time I do as I'm told. I figure maybe if I don't break any more rules, Ma will tell me what's inside the box from Madagascar. I didn't notice when I first got here, but one entire wall of the living room is covered with bookshelves. Problem is, it's so dark that I can't read the titles. "Can I open the curtains?" I ask. But Ma is busy rifling through her purse and doesn't respond. I'm relieved and the mysterious box jumps a couple of times. Whatever creatures are inside are still alive. But then, Ma mashes the box with her fist, and they whimper before growing silent and still once more. I'm so busy staring at the mangled box that I don't realize Ma is watching me. I jump when she says, "You found a book yet?" I turn my head so that I'm facing the wall of books. "No, Ma." "You need me to come over there and pick one for you?" I quickly shake my head and peer at the spines of books crammed onto the shelf. Ma starts digging in her purse again, and I hear a few curse words come out of her mouth. I can't tell exactly what she's muttering, but I do hear one name over and over again. Elroy. I wonder if he's the old friend who lives in Madagascar. I wonder how Elroy would feel if he knew how Ma was treating the gift he sent. The books on the shelf all look old and smell kind of musty. There's no dust on the shelves, but I get the feeling these books haven't been read in a mighty long time. The words on the spines are printed in faded gold ink that I can barely read. I tug open one of the heavy blue curtains so that a bit of light slips into the dark room. One thick green book immediately catches my eye. The Wondrous Lizards of Madagascar by Elroy Jenkins. Could Ma's friend Elroy be this same Elroy Jenkins? Just as I pull the heavy book off the shelf, Ma calls out, "Come here, boy." I decide to see whether Ma's holding her cane before I take a few steps towards the dining room. Ma's actually smiling, and her cane is safely hooked over the back of one of the chairs that circle the table. It looks like she's dumped everything that used to be inside her purse onto the table, but the biggest surprise is that the stamp-covered box is open. The 4 cardboard flaps have been pushed to the back to reveal a tangle of shredded paper strips. Whatever's inside that box was packed with care. Hopefully that means the creatures inside are safe. When Ma sees me eyeing the box, she moves her empty old lady purse in front of it to block my view. Then she brightens her smile and asks, "Want a mint?" After that terrible peanut butter sandwich, I could actually use a breath mint, but I nod only so I have an excuse to go back into the dining room and get a closer look at the box. I clutch the book to my chest with one hand while holding the other out for a mint. Ma pulls a small red tin from the mess on the table. She shakes it, flips the lid open, and then dumps all the mints into my outstretched hand. "I only want one," I tell her. "Put the rest in your pocket," Ma says. "I need this tin." Then she blows the minty white dust out of the empty tin and tells me to turn around. "Why?" I ask, as I deposit more than 20 mints in my pants pocket. "Just do as you're told, boy," Ma snarls at me. "Close your eyes." I take a quick glance at the open box on the table before doing as I'm told. If I want Ma to trust me, I have to follow her rules. For now, at least. "No peeking," she warns with a sharp poke to my shoulder. I squeeze my eyes shut and listen as Ma rummages in the box before snapping the tin shut. "Can I turn around now?" I ask. Ma responds by shoving me in the direction of the living room. "Go read your book." I turn around instead and try to get a look at the table. The empty box is now on the floor, and the nest of shredded paper sits atop the jumble of things Ma dumped out of her purse. The mint tin is small enough to fit in the palm of Ma's hand. What could she have put inside? I search for a reason to linger in the dining room. "So, have you read this book?" I ask. Ma doesn't even look at the book I'm holding. She starts putting things back into her purse, starting with the red mint tin. I know she just wants me to go away and be quiet, but I decide to try again. "It looks interesting. It's by someone named Elroy Jenkins. Do you know him?" "Nope." "Are you sure? His book is about Madagascar." Ma sighs with exasperation. "Listen, boy, I never read none of those books. In fact, most of them ain't even mine. I just keep them on that big old shelf because it's easier than tearing it down and putting up wallpaper." I frown. That's not true. Ma stops filling up her purse and looks at me hard. "Boy, you wouldn't know the truth if it came up and bit you on the behind." That makes my cheeks burn. What's that supposed to mean? Is this weird old lady calling me a liar, or does she think I'm dumb? I'm not the one keeping secrets and acting shady. I probably know more about Madagascar than you do, I blurt out, but Ma's not paying any attention to me anymore. She's examining a gold pocket watch that looks like it's even older than her rotary phone. When she sees me watching her, she shuts the antique watch with a sharp click and tosses it into her purse. For such a small bag, it sure seems to hold a lot of stuff. I take a closer look at the dump of shredded paper that used to be inside the cardboard box. Mixed in with the crumpled strips are pearly purple fragments of something that looks like it's been broken. Ma tries to block my view with her body, but not before I figure out that the clump of paper isn't just packing material. It's a nest. And the purple fragments are broken eggshells. Something hatched inside that box. And the mysterious creatures must be strong enough to have rocked the box as they were being born. Yet they're still small enough to fit inside Ma's empty mint tin. I decide it's time to stop beating around the bush. I suck up my courage and ask, "What did you put inside that tin?" If Ma had any eyebrows, they would have hit the ceiling. Instead, her eyes nearly pop out of her head. "Never you mind what's in that tin," she says in a huff. "You ain't here to get all up in my business, boy. I told your mama you could stay a little while, but that don't mean you can come in here and interrogate me." I want Ma to trust me, but right now I'm just making her mad. I'm not interrogating you, Ma. I just want to know what's going on. I mean, let's face it, you're acting, well, kind of strange. Ma puts her hands on her hips. "I'm acting strange. Who let the squirrel into the house?" She's got me there. I look at the empty cardboard box on the floor and try to think of something else to say. Ma thinks of something first. "Boy, you had better go on and read that book before I lose my temper. Think you can come in here and mix yourself up in grown folks' business? No, sirree. You're hard-headed, just like your mama. She didn't listen to me when she had the chance, and now where is she? In court begging some judge to keep a roof over your hard heads." For the second time today, my eyes suddenly start to fill with tears. "Don't talk about my mama," I whisper at the floor, but Ma hears me just the same. "I'll talk about whatever I want to talk about, boy. I know your mama a whole lot better than you do. I bet you never expect to wind up here with an old lady like me, but I always knew at least she'll be back someday. She keep on trying to outrun trouble, but life don't work that way. Trouble will come for you no matter where you try to hide. Best thing is to be ready for it, and you ain't ready." I push past Ma and head for the front door where my bag is resting on the floor. "Where you think you're going? Where you think you're going?" she barks at me. "Home," I say before hefting my bag onto my shoulder. Ma tips her head back and laughs so hard her halo of hair shakes. "You ain't got a home, remember? That's why your mama left you here with me. Now go sit your butt down on that sofa and read your darn book. Or throw yourself a pity party, I don't care. Just stop pestering me." I take a deep breath and flip the lock on the door. No. "What? Don't you sass me, boy. You don't want me here, so I might as well go." "You're right. I don't want you here. But it ain't personal. It's just that I got business to take care of, so stop making a nuisance of yourself and do as you're told. I have friends, you know. I don't have to stay where I'm not wanted." I put my hand on the doorknob and take one last look at the empty box covered with stamps from Madagascar. "When Mama comes back, tell her I've gone to stay with Vic." "Pfft. Suit yourself," Ma says with a sigh. Just as I turn to go, we both hear a low, menacing growl coming from inside Ma's old lady purse. Ma scowls, grabs her cane, and whacks the bag. There's a sharp squeal, and then whatever was growling inside the tin in her bag grows quiet. Ma pulls a chair out from the dining room table, sinks onto it, and covers her eyes with a hand. "I'm too old for this mess," she mutters. I see my chance and I take it. Before Ma can say another word, I fling open the door and dash out of the apartment. Chapter 5. I reach the bottom of the stairs before I realize that I've still got Elroy's book tucked under my arm. I'm not sure why I brought it with me, but I know I'm not going back to that apartment. I tell myself I'll give it to Mama and let her take it back to Ma. I sure hope Mama and her lawyer win in court today. If we get evicted, we might have to move in with Ma, and I don't want to see that mean old lady ever again. Once I reach the street, I slow down and take a moment to catch my breath. I put the heavy book inside my bag and zip it up. If I'm going to stay with the Patels, I'll need to call Vic, but I don't have a cell phone, and I don't see any payphones on this block. I know it's unlikely that Mama will come back soon, so I drop onto the front step of a neighboring building and try to come up with a plan. 10 minutes go by before I hear a tap-tap-tap sound on the pavement. I glance up, and sure enough, Ma is making her way toward me with her cane. She points it at me and calls out, "You, boy!" I tell myself I don't have to look at her, and Mama always said I didn't have to respond to anyone who called me out of my name. The tap-tap-tap sound doesn't stop, though, and soon Ma is standing before me on the sidewalk. She's wearing black leather sneakers, but I can see the hem of her purple housecoat hanging below her beige overcoat. Ma must have hurried to catch up with me. She's a little out of breath, so neither of us says anything for a minute. I look down the block, wishing I could make Mama suddenly appear. Ma looks the other way like she's waiting for someone, too. Finally, she clears her throat and says, "I gotta make a delivery." When I don't respond, Ma coughs lightly and asks, "You coming, boy?" Ma isn't looking at me, but her voice isn't as harsh as it was before. Something tells me Ma's not the sort of person who's good at apologies. It's okay with me, because I'm not planning to apologize either. My name's Jackson, I say quietly. Ma grunts and squints at me. That's your daddy's name? I frown. I don't want to talk about my father, so I just shrug and say, that's my name, but you can call me Jax. Ma nods and says, let's go, Jack. It's Jax, with an X. Ma looks annoyed, but she nods again and waits for me to get up. I heave my book bag onto my shoulder and we start walking up the block, slowly because that's how Ma hobbles along with her cane. For a long while, we don't say a word. Then Ma clears her throat and says, your mama calls me Ma because I used to look after her when she was a girl. Mother left her with me, but we ain't related. I'm just an old friend of the family. Why did my grandmother leave Mama with you, I ask. Ma stops walking and leans on her cane. She takes a few deep breaths and then looks down at me. Raising a child is the hardest job in the world, Jax. I should know. I've raised plenty. But ain't none of 'em mine. Like a lot of women, your granny needed help. Raising the child on her own was more than she could handle, so she came to me cause she knew I needed help too. What kind of help? Like with chores? Boy, please, Ma says impatiently. I frown and wait for her to call me by my name. Ma rolls her eyes but tries again. You've seen my home, Jax. It was nice and tidy till you let that darn squirrel into my kitchen. I don't need anyone's help to keep a clean house. Back then, I needed a different kind of help. Another name for that kind of helper is apprentice. Ma pushes herself forward and tries walking one more. I want to move, but all the thoughts suddenly swirling in my head are making me dizzy. I take a deep breath and try to focus. Apprentice? The only time I've seen that word is when it comes after another word, sorcerer. If Mama was the apprentice, does that mean Ma is... Then I start to wonder, is Mama really at court today? What if she doesn't come back for me? If I stay with Ma for good, does that mean I'm going to become her apprentice? A fly nearly zooms into my open mouth, so I close it and hurry to catch up with Ma. She's squinting even though the sky is full of gloomy clouds. It was sunny just a moment ago, but I don't have time to think about the weather right now. I need to know the truth. So, Mama was your apprentice? Ma shakes her snowy head and says, she could have been. Had a lot of potential, your mama. Alicia was a very bright girl, and curious like you, but she wanted an ordinary life. Ma clears her throat before spitting a little wad of phlegm into the street. So that's what she got. I think about that for a minute. Is getting evicted ordinary? Sure doesn't seem normal to me. I get the feeling Ma wishes Mama had made different decisions in her life, but if Mama had become Ma's apprentice all those years ago, would she still have met my daddy and had me? If I were Ma's apprentice, I'd probably already know what she's keeping inside the red mint tin. Elroy's thick book weighs heavily in my bag, so I make an educated guess. Your friend in Madagascar, he sent you some lizards, didn't he? I hold my breath and don't exhale until Ma nods. That gives me the courage to ask another question. And he's the same man who wrote that book, right? The book you stole? I didn't steal it, I stammer. I'm just borrowing it for a while. I slide one arm free and swing my backpack around so I can unzip it. Here, I'll give it back. Ma stops again and glares at me. What am I going to do with a big heavy book out here in the street? She's right, of course, so I zip my bag and slip my arm back through the strap. To my surprise, Ma chuckles. Besides, I'd done read that book half a dozen times already. I give Ma the side eye. You said you hadn't read any of those books, and you knew I wasn't telling the truth. You're no fool, Jax, I'll give you that much. It's not exactly a compliment, but Ma's still got something like a smile on her face, so I dare to ask another question. Why was that squirrel trying to give marshmallows to your lizards? Ma's smile disappears. She looks down the block and whistles softly. Every living creature needs help to survive in this world, Jax. I do the best I can for the creatures in my care, but sometimes... Ma brings her milky black gaze back to my face. Then she puts her thumb on one of my creeping caterpillar eyebrows and tries to smooth out the curly hair. Mama does that too, and it always makes me smile because we both know our eyebrows won't ever be tamed. Sometimes you can't let your love show, Ma says in a soft but firm voice. Sometimes you have to say no when you want to say yes, because it's the responsible thing to do. These drag lizards can't stay here, Jax. They came from one world and they're on their way to another. Are they hungry? Probably. This kind of newborn loves sweet, sticky things, but I can't give them what they want. Why not? If I feed them, they think I was their mama. You know what imprint means? I think for a moment. Vocabulary isn't one of my specialties, but I'll give it a shot anyway. When something heavy makes an imprint on something light or soft, like when you step in mud or wet cement and leave a footprint. Ma nods. That's right. In the animal world, it's a little bit different. Some animals don't know how to be, who to be, until they open their eyes for the first time. These little critters need to be kept in the dark until they're with their own kind. I couldn't let them see me or you. Why can't they stay here? You could buy a terrarium from a pet store and another lizard who can show them how to do lizard stuff. I could help you look after them. Ma looks up and down the block and sadly shakes her head. Brooklyn ain't what it used to be. Sometimes I look around and hardly recognize the place. Artisanal this and organic that. I just know the name of everyone in my building, and they knew mine. Now I don't even know half the folks on my floor. They move in and act like strangers, not neighbors. Ma sighs and starts walking again. That's the way of the world, I guess. Out with the old, in with the new. Sure is a shame, though. Brooklyn's lost its magic. All kinds of creatures used to call this place home, but not anymore. I think about the notices our landlord keeps putting on our front door. Everybody should have a home, I say, and get to stay there as long as they want. In an ideal world, that would be true, Ma says. But that's not the world we live in, Jax. I feel my eyes filling with tears again, so I come up with another question. Where are you taking the lizards? Prospect Park Zoo? Ma shakes her head. These lizards are, special. They need a whole lot of space so they can spread I mean, they need room to grow. Elroy sent them to me because he knew I wouldn't put them in a cage. So he is your friend. Ma grunts. Elroy is a quack. Calls himself a scientist. Most of the time he just makes stuff up and most folks won't know the difference. But you know. She nods and says with a hint of pride, it's my job to know what's fact and what's fiction. Then Ma points her cane at the park up ahead and adds, that's where we're going. Now, Jax, can you keep a secret? Because I don't need your mama hassling me about mixing you up in my business. That's why she left home in the first place. She didn't like my line of work. What line of work is that, I ask, feeling silly for thinking Mom might being a sorcerer. Are you a veterinarian? No, Jax, I'm not a vet. What are you then? Ma looks both ways before pushing me into the empty street with her cane. I wait to see if she'll answer my question, but she doesn't respond until we reach the other side of the street. Then she turns and just stares at me for what feels like a really long time. Your mama really didn't tell you nothing about me, Mama asks finally. No, ma'am, I say truthfully. Ma grunts. You got nice manners, I'll give you that, she says. Then she sighs and leans heavily on her cane, so heavily I worry it might snap in two. What you need to know, Jax, is I'm a witch. She says it simply, like it's no big deal. Then Ma pushes herself off her cane and hobbles over to the park. Chapter 6. We stop in front of the entrance to Prospect Park. Behind us, cars race along busy Flatbush Avenue. Joggers trot past us and mothers push babies in strollers. Mama used to bring me here when I was little. There's a carousel and a zoo on this side of the park, plus a playground in Lefferts House where Dutch settlers used to live. Prospect Park is one of my favorite places in Brooklyn, but being here with Mom makes me feel more nervous than excited. I put a hand over my stomach and hope I don't look as queasy as I feel. What does an old witch with baby lizards from Madagascar do in a place like Prospect Park? Turns out we aren't actually going inside the park. Instead, we stand before the tall stone gate while Ma examines the tumultuous sky. The dark clouds above us look like water swirling down a drain. Looks like rain, I say, hoping that will prompt her to act, but Ma just gives me a thoughtful, before giving her bag a reassuring pat. What do we do now, I ask as raindrops start to spatter my face. Wait, Ma replies. I follow her over to a stone bench and watch as Ma eases herself onto it with a groan. I'm too anxious to sit, so I stand a few feet away. One or two pigeons do their jerky walk nearby, hoping we'll toss them some crumbs or something else to eat. Whenever a pigeon gets too close, I swing my foot in its direction and send it flapping away. But more and more pigeons descend from the angry sky, and soon we're surrounded by a sea of cooing birds. I stamp my foot to scare them away, but Ma says, leave 'em be. They know what time it is. That makes no sense to me, but I do as I'm told and sit next to Ma on the hard stone bench. I steal glances at her, but try to act cool. I've never seen a real witch before. Ma doesn't look anything like the witches you see on TV. I want to ask her how she became a witch. Was she someone else's apprentice once? I'm curious, but also a little bit scared, and I don't want to say something corny like, where's your broomstick? So I just crack my knuckles and wait for Ma to say something to me. She's gone back to staring at the sky, though, so nothing gets said for a while. Before I can think of a sensible witch question to ask, a homeless man pushing an overflowing grocery cart comes our way. He's wearing so much clothing he looks like a walking pile of laundry. I count at least 3 different hats stacked on top of his head, which he keeps tucked in close to his chest. I can't see the man's face, but his cart carries an old TV, clear bags full of empty soda cans and bottles, and more clothes. I try not to stare because Mama says that's rude, but Ma doesn't seem to feel that way. In fact, Ma shifts closer to me so there's more room on the bench, and sure enough, the man parks his cart and sits down right beside her. Ma, he says in a gruff but friendly voice. Ambrose, she replies politely. I stare at the ground so no one can tell how surprised I am. Ma knows this guy? You ever think about traveling light? You ought to find some place to park that cart that's slowing you down, bro. The man reaches out a gloved hand and grips the rim of his cart. Sorry to keep you waiting, Ma, but I like to keep my prized possessions within reach. Ma nods like she understands. Then she uses her cane to knock a clump of dried mud off one of his mismatched shoes. How are things? The man lifts his head to gaze at the street.
Things ain't what they used to be, Ma. But you don't need me to tell you that.
Any trouble with the transporter?
You traveling today?
Ma shrugs.
Might be. Thought you left the game a long time ago, Ma. You ain't no spring chicken, you know.
Ma grunts and taps her cane anxiously on the pavement.
Tell me about it. But you know how it is, bro. Every time I get close to retirement, they find some way to keep me on the job.
Ambrose chuckles.
What is it this time?
Ma pats her bag and says, I gotta make a delivery. Ambrose tilts his head to the side, which makes the fedora on top start to slide off.
That's grunt work, Ma. Why they got a pro like you making deliveries?
Ma tugs the strap for her bag and looks around to see if anyone's listening.
You know how it is, bro. Some deliveries are more special than others.
Ambrose nods so hard the fedora finally does fall off. I pick it up and hand it to him, and that's when I see the gap. It's a mild spring day, but Ambrose is wrapped up from head to toe. He's wearing so much clothing I can't see an inch of his skin, but even with all his layers, I can still see air between the elastic cuff of his bubble coat and his glove when Ambrose reaches out his hand to take back his hat. Before today, I wouldn't have paid much attention to a homeless man sitting on a bench in front of Prospect Park, but now that I know Ma's a witch, nothing seems normal. If Ambrose wasn't wearing 100 different pieces of clothing, I think he'd be invisible.
Thanks, kid, he says before setting the fedora on top of his baseball cap.
To Ma, he says,
He's with you.
Ma looks at me for a few seconds before she responds,
Yeah, he's with me. And the birds?
Ma shrugs and looks up at the angry sky.
Guess they figured I needed a winged escort.
Ambrose laughs and pulls a clear plastic bag from his cart. He undoes the knot and tosses birdseed at the pigeons. They hurry over to him, clearing the sidewalk in front of Ma and me.
First day on the job?
Ambrose asks. He keeps his head down like he's watching the birds, but I know he's talking to me. I open my mouth to reply, but Ma beats me to it.
He's just a temp, she says.
Ambrose laughs once again.
All your apprentices are temporary, Ma. Watch yourself, kid. On-the-job training in our line of work can be risky. Say, Ma, whatever happened to your last apprentice? Did his hair ever grow back? Course it did.
Mama puts her hand on my arm and gives me a sharp squeeze.
Don't listen to him, Jax. Bro's just messing with you.
To Ambrose, she says, You ready?
I'm always ready, Ma. Just say the word.
Ma puts both hands on her cane and pushes herself off the bench with another groan.
Is that really necessary? We've known each other a long time, bro. True, but I don't make the rules, Ma. Can't open the door unless you give me the password.
Door? I look around, but the only door I can see belongs to the guardhouse. There's one at each corner of the park entrance. It looks like the tiniest castle ever built, with round stone walls and a pointed red-tiled roof. 2 steps lead up to a black door that has no knob, just a gold keyhole in the center. The guardhouse used to have windows on the sides and in its door, but metal plates and black bars weave across the space where glass ought to be. It might be the perfect hideout for rats, but why would Ma want to go in there? The pigeons take advantage of Ma's distracted state and gather at her feet once more. Ma curses under her breath and fishes inside her purse for several seconds before pulling out a small blue book. She opens it impatiently, flips from page to page. Finally, she cries out, Got it! I watch as Ma leans in close to Ambrose and whispers something in his ear. He nods and then grips his cart to steady himself as he gets to his feet. Ambrose pulls a key from a pocket inside his heavy coat and leads Ma over to the guardhouse that's closest to our bench. I hear a loud click as he unlocks the black door. Ma waits for Ambrose to shuffle back over to his cart before she tries opening the door. Since it has no knob, she tugs at the bars over the window until the heavy door creaks open. Ambrose deposits the key inside his coat and calls over his shoulder.
The transporter's had some irregular outcomes in the past few weeks.
Ma frowns and pulls the black door open a bit more so she can peer inside.
I don't need to hear that, bro, she says wearily. Not today. That's what you should know, Ma, since you're taking a friend. Be prepared for potential irregularities.
I'm always prepared, Ma says with confidence. Ambrose nods again and pushes his cart back down Flatbush Avenue.
Well, it's been a pleasure, Ma. You take good care of yourself.
If I don't, who will? Ma asks with a smile. Ambrose raises his hand and Ma waves back even though he can't see her. Then she turns to me and says, Ready to go? Go where? I ask as my stomach does a quick flip.
From this world to another. Shouldn't take too long.
You ever been to Coney Island, Jax? I nod and Ma says,
It's sort of like riding the cyclone. Bumpy but fast.
I shoo the remaining pigeons away and walk up to the guardhouse. With all the windows blocked, it's dark inside, but enough light comes through the open door to show a second door in the back wall.
Nothing to be afraid of, says Ma. We just close the door, hold on, and come out the other side once we reach our destination.
Which is? Ma sighs.
I know you like geography, Jackson, but the place we're going to isn't on any map you've ever seen.
And the lizards will be safe there, I ask? I do care about them, but mostly I'm trying to delay the decision Ma wants me to make. Ma takes the gold pocket watch from her purse. She turns it over in her palm and says more to herself than to me, "It's time." The rain starts to fall more steadily, and people rush out of the park, paying us no mind. Only the pigeons find us fascinating. One even lands on Ma's shoulder. I would have freaked out, but Ma just strokes the bird before gently pushing it off. Finally, Ma looks at me through the drizzle and says, "Here's the deal, Jax. The real deal. These creatures Elroy sent me aren't lizards. They're dragons. There's not enough magic here to sustain these creatures. That's why they can't stay in Brooklyn." Ma pauses to give me a chance to say something, but I'm speechless, so she goes on. "I know it's a lot to take in. I'm a witch, I've got 3 dragons in my bag, and I'm supposed to look after you for a while. You can come with me, but I'd understand if you wanted to go stay with your friend instead. What was his name?" "Vic," I tell her. "Right. You got options, Jax." Ma washes me for a moment and then says, "You look a little queasy already. Maybe you should stay with Ambrose. He hasn't gone far. If you hurry, you can catch him. I'll find you when I get back, I promise." I peer into the dark, cramped guardhouse and wonder whether Mama was right to run away from Ma. Maybe my mother felt then the way I feel right now. "You don't have to come," Ma tells me. "No hard feelings, really. But you have to make up your mind fast, Jax, 'cause I got to go." A whining sound comes from Ma's purse, and more pigeons flock to the guardhouse. I glance up the block and wonder what Ambrose and I would talk about if I chose to stay behind with him instead of going who knows where with Ma. There's probably a payphone at the nearby subway station, and the library isn't too far. I could call Vic and tell him to meet me there. Or I could travel to a faraway world and help Ma deliver those baby dragons. Ma shoos the pigeons out of the guardhouse and steps inside. There's barely enough room for her to turn around. Ma smiles at me and waves before grabbing hold of the metal ring in the center of the door. "I'll be back soon, Jax," she says with a wave. Ma is smiling, but I see something in her blue-black eyes. I think it might be disappointment. How many new recruits have walked away when Ma needed their help? And I'm not her official apprentice. Like she said, I'm just a temp. But I have nothing better to do right now. In my bag, I've got Elroy's book, which should teach me a thing or two about the wondrous dragons in Madagascar. I already got left behind once today. I don't want to get left behind again. Just as Ma starts to pull the heavy door shut, I call out, "Wait! I'm coming with you, Ma." "You might need a helper," I tell her as I squeeze in. Ma pulls the door shut with a bang. It's pitch black inside the cramped guardhouse. My racing heart slows down a bit when Ma puts her hands on my shoulders. "All right, Jax. Hold on. This could be a bumpy ride."